That transistor passed a functional test, but it leaks. It's going to fail in the field. And we know all too well when a damaged chip finds its way into a computer, it can have aggravating consequences. How can we stress this? 100 years ago, the medical profession didn't really believe in bacteria. Now they take elaborate precautions to keep their working environment sterile. We're just beginning to realize that we have to be just as meticulous about static if we want our patients, the chips, to survive and function properly. Now, you might be saying to yourself, hey, wait a minute. I've been handling boards for years without protection, and I sure haven't experienced the kind of failures you're talking about. Well, there are two reasons for that. One is that as crowded as these integrated circuits are, there are still a lot of places where a zap won't hurt anything. The other reason is that most of the time, sparks only wound. They don't kill. So if you wound one, and if it fails outright in a month or two, well, you've gotten away with murder. It's question time. Take a look at the following and tell me if the chip on the bench is going to be all right. The cup is a non-conductor, and when he separated it from another non-conductor, it picked up a charge. He placed the charged non-conductor near the chip, and inside the chip are conductors. Let's look at a slow-motion representation of what happens. As the field surrounding the cup envelops the chip, it causes voltage changes in the traces. And if the voltage reaches a level high enough to jump, it burns a hole between the traces. The spark's heat vaporizes the metal, which then condenses on the sides of the hole. If it creates a direct short, we're lucky. Usually it doesn't, and we have a degraded circuit waiting to fail in the field. We can get rid of a charge on a conductor by touching another conductor, but the cup is a non-conductor. How do we get rid of a charge on a cup? The only way a charged non-conductor can get rid of its charge is for the ions, positive or negative, that make up the charge to unite with ions of opposite charge. The air has ions floating free, and gradually the cup will find enough to go back to neutral. But that can take quite a while, hours, days. If you want to hurry the process along, an ionizer generates both positive and negative ions, and as they flow around the object, it takes what it needs. But even an ionizer can't neutralize the charge quickly enough to prevent damage, which happens in the first few millionths of a second. So what can we do? Well, the basic rules are simple. If the device is not being worked on, it should be in a shielded bag. If the device is not in a shielded bag, don't touch it unless you're grounded with a wrist strap or a heel strap. And don't let ordinary plastics or synthetic clothing get close to it. Let me show you something. This is a gadget that spits out positive and negative ions. I'll just prove it to you with my static meter here. Positive and negative. Now zero the meter. This is a new bag. Now I'll put the meter inside, turn it on, zero it, and then I will fire the gun at it, and there isn't a wiggle. Now this bag has a little scuff in it, has a lot of little pinholes, and again I will zero the meter. As you can see, this is allowing 200 or 300 volts to seep through the bag. When we say put it in a shielded bag, we mean a good one, not one with a lot of holes or a lot of scuff marks on it. If you see a worn bag, test it. Don't risk a $100 board to save a 60-cent bag that's already lived a rich, full life. While we're at it, let's see what happens when you put it inside a bag that's anti-static but unshielded. This is a typical anti-static bag, but it's unshielded. Put the meter in. Zero the meter. Oop, better set that on high. Zero the meter. And as you can see, it's allowing 4,000, 5,000 volts to seep through. This bag won't cause sparks, but it won't protect from a field that's placed near the chip. By the way, we used to think that once the chip was mounted on the board, it was no longer susceptible to ESD damage. Not so. In fact, the possibility of damage actually increases because the traces and leads on the board act as antennae. A proper workstation will have a conductive mat grounded to earth ground, to which the worker attaches a wrist strap cable. When we say ground, we mean real earth ground. The ground wire in a modern building will probably be all right, but you can check it with a ground checker. The wrist straps have to touch the skin, or they don't do any good. If the worker can't wear a wrist strap because it hampers movement, he can wear heel straps, which go from the moist inside of his shoe to ground by passing under the heel. Of course, he must be standing on a floor pad that's both conductive and grounded. By the way, I've had techs tell me that you don't have to worry about grounding unless you have carpeted floors. That's just not true. It doesn't matter what you have on the floors. If you're not grounded, you can't be sure you're ESD safe. The tools used at the bench, like soldering irons, have to be grounded, and devices like solder suckers must be made of conductive plastic. These old blue ones can generate several thousand volts on a dry day. Be careful of heat guns. Some can generate over 10,000 volts directly on your work. And don't use toothbrushes to clean your work. Brushes should be natural bristles, not plastic. And storage bins should be made of conductive plastic.